One of the most interesting things that happened on our farm was many years ago when both Darren and I went off to college, and we came back one time and we realized all the livestock were missing. Where'd they go, Darren?
No, actually, Brent, I came back one time and Dad said, let's load up all the hogs, load up all the cattle, and take them to town. And I said, great, Dad, it's a good idea to disinfect all the facilities before we bring in the new batch. And Dad said, yeah, we're not going to be bringing in the new batch, because you guys are off doing other things now and nobody's here to do my chores. Actually, Dad said it's because the market conditions didn't justify loading back up with livestock at
whatever,
that time.
all his cheap labor was gone. But anyway, the point is a lot of farmers have livestock yet today, and one of the most important things they've got to focus on is feeding that livestock. Well, if you have cattle, you're probably looking at silage as one of the feeds that you will use. So how do you pick the right silage corn for your farm?
Well, I find it interesting when we're talking about cows and bulls out on a farm. Many farmers or ranchers are just saying, I'm going to get by cheap. I don't want to put too much in there, at certain times of the year, because I just need them to sustain themselves for a little while here, so I'm not going to go crazy. So, it's just like at home. Maybe we just have rice and beans for a few meals because we're going to save a buck. But then when you really want output, if you've got beef cattle that you're trying to fatten up and grow quickly, well, you've got to give them really good food in order to maximize their rate of gain. So it is kind of different. There's some different times where farmers and ranchers may feed different feedstocks to their livestock.
Well, wait a second though. Before we get into anything else, I just think it's very interesting. You made the comment farmers and ranchers. Okay, so if you're a farmer, your number one focus is usually on the crops. If you're a rancher, your number one focus is on the livestock. Why can't we have focus on both things? So on our farm, the way it used to be, we cared about the crops because we were farmers. So sure, we had a bunch of livestock, but you know what corn we were going to give the livestock? Whatever corn didn't turn out good in terms of grain yield and grain production. Okay, so it was the leftover stuff. Same thing with hogs, same thing with cattle. It really didn't make much difference to us. That was the secondary thing. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is you can do a great job with both if you take a portion of your crop acres and become a rancher on those acres and try to pick the right hybrids that will work well for your cattle.
Okay, well, if you're a dairy farmer, dairy rancher, I don't really hear that term too much. I hear dairy farmer, and maybe that's part of the reason why it is a dairy farmer, Brian, because they have to focus on high quality foodstuffs that for the most part dairy farmers will actually grow that food to feed to their livestock, or they'll get a neighboring farmer who will focus on growing really good food for their cattle, because with dairy cattle, they've got to produce the most milk. They've got to do a great job producing milk each and every day, so they've got to have a good, consistent food stuff.
Okay, all right, so let's talk specifically about what you're going to do. How are you going to pick silage hybrids? You're an agronomist, you got a farmer or a rancher that walks in and says, I want the very best cattle I can possibly produce. Tell me how to do it with the right silage corn.
Well, I'm not just looking for the big, tall, leafy hybrids. That's not what I'm after. And I'm not after the seed company that's going to tell me, well, here's my most popular 5 hybrids. And oh yeah, they're great dual purpose hybrids. You know what that means? That just means this is what I want to sell. Oh, you've got cattle. Okay, well, I still want to sell this to you. That's how I look at it. If I'm a dairy farmer, what I'm looking for is brown midrib corns. That would be a great way to be on the real high end to get the very best food, the best digestibility, the most milk production out of your cattle. Now, taking one step down from there, you could go to something like a TMF hybrid from Mycogen or Dow. They have corn they've specifically picked that's going to have a lot of grain on it. It's going to stand very well for you. It's going to be a very healthy plant. Those are things that I look for. But just with any corn hybrid out there, if you said, look, this is the corn I'm going to plant, how can I get the best silage out of it? I would focus on things like keeping my plant population at the optimum level. Maybe I'm planting 30,000, but I know, I should probably push it to 32 or 34. I'd probably do that on my silage corn. I'd also look for something that stands very well, because you don't want to have stock quality issues out there on your silage corn. You want to have a good, healthy feed stuff for your cattle. The other thing I'd look at is digestibility. Not just of that grain, but also of the stalk, to make sure you have something that's very digestible. For example, if you've got a really thick, tough rind on your corn stalk, chances are you've got a lot of lignin in there that's going to be a little tougher to digest for the cattle. So you want to watch out when it comes to that. And finally, let's get into Brian's favorite thing, feeding that crop right. If you want to put lots of nutrients into your crop, guess what? That's more nutrition for those cattle to eat. So don't skimp on the fertilizer and do a good job raising the best healthy crop we can do.
Well, I don't really think there is anything different in terms of production of silage corn versus production of grain corn. You want to do everything as well as you possibly can, from weed control, disease, insects, overall fertility, all that. It's important either way, but your focus on silage should always be, in my opinion, total digestible nutrients that you've got. So you've got to evaluate that rather than just looking at yield or rather than looking at height. You want to see some statistics in terms of total digestible nutrients.
Well, silage corns are very important, but like Brian mentioned, getting good weed control in them is as well. Can you identify this week's weed of the week?